When I first arrived in the Sahara, I was just struck by how utterly barren it was. It's like the color green was removed from the palette when they made this place. Just nothing, grays and browns, and not a scrap of life.
Deep in the Sahara, the sand burns hot enough to cook an egg. In 2023, a group of scientists drove straight into this furnace with a cargo that seemed insane. They carried millions of frozen bees, asleep in temperature-controlled crates. The plan was to wake them up and release them into the most extreme environment on Earth. It sounds like a disaster waiting to happen, considering bees usually perish when the thermometer hits 104 degrees. But these were not normal insects, and the secret they carried inside their DNA was about to change everything we thought we knew about the desert. The wax catastrophe. The experiment begins with a scene that looks like pure madness. In the middle of the Sahara, where the air shimmers and dances with heat, dozens of wooden crates are pried open. Out of them bursts a cloud of confusion. Thousands, then millions of bees flood the air, hovering right above sand that is baking at temperatures close to 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Men in thick white protective suits step back quickly, watching the swarm disappear into the blinding sunlight. At first glance, this looks like a waste of time. Releasing fragile insects into the hottest major desert on the planet seems like a doomed effort. But here is the catch. In 2023, the United Nations and several African governments decided they had to try something radical. They wanted to test if it was possible to bring life back to the Sahara using insects as the spark. For this experiment, specific bee queens were caught in Europe. They spent 2 weeks inside refrigerators to slow down their metabolism, basically putting them into a deep sleep. Then they were transported across the sea and driven deep into the dunes. The goal was massive. They wanted to make the lifeless land green again. They hoped these tiny workers would help plants restore the soil and maybe, just maybe, turn these dunes into meadows. But the Sahara does not welcome outsiders. From the very first moment, it was obvious this experiment was going to go wrong. What most people don't realize is how fragile a bee actually is. When bees appear in a new place, everything changes. They are the engine of our planet. Without them, half the food in your fridge simply would not exist. Almost a third of all crops in the United States depend on honeybees. We are talking about apples, almonds, melons, and broccoli. They connect plants into a single living system. When bees vanish, the chain falls apart. Without pollination, plants cannot reproduce. Without plants, the plant eaters disappear. Without plant eaters, the predators go hungry. Step by step, nature crumbles to dust. In Europe, about 80% of all crops and wildflowers depend on bees. Take them away, and almost 9 out of 10 species will simply be gone. But this balance works both ways. When bees return to places where they had been gone, everything comes back to life. Flowers bloom, seeds spread, and new life gathers around them. That was the dream for the Sahara, to make the chain reaction begin again where there has only been sand for thousands of years. The problem is the location. The Sahara isn't just a lot of sand, it is a giant monster that has already swallowed half a continent. The largest hot desert on Earth keeps growing, taking new land from people every single year. Its body stretches from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the Red Sea. It covers Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, and keeps going south. In Algeria, it covers 80% of the land. In Libya, almost 95%. Even in Egypt, 2/3 of the country is buried under sand. Satellite images show it clearly. The Sahara is moving, but people keep trying to fight back. Egypt grows crops right among the dunes, creating green circles in the middle of nowhere. It is an attempt to prove the Sahara can be fooled, but the desert does not retreat. Over the past few decades, it has grown by about 10%. It swallows pastures, towns, and roads. So the idea of bringing life back here looks insane. Bees perish at 104 degrees Fahrenheit. In the Sahara, the sand heats up to 158 degrees. To give you an idea of how sensitive bees are, look at Nevada. There are over 1,000 bee species there, but their numbers are dropping. In the southern part of the state, it gets so hot that wild hives literally melt. Bees are not stupid. When it gets that hot, they just fly away. Speaking of melting, that is not a metaphor. A hive can actually start to move and drip when it overheats. The perfect temperature inside a hive is about 95 degrees. If it gets any hotter, it is game over. The babies stop growing. The colony gets weak. At 104 degrees, the honeycomb starts softening. It is made of beeswax, and wax is the foundation of their whole world. It is used to build the rooms where they store honey and raise their young. But wax is just like a candle. It melts. If the temperature rises too high, everything the bees built for weeks or years just turns into a puddle. In 2022, in a Moroccan village near the desert, spring came with silence. Huge bee colonies were lost to the heat and drought. So, releasing ordinary bees into the Sahara sounds like sending them into a furnace. But nature has a few tricks up her sleeve that nobody expected. The heat-proof swarm. Basically, bees are smarter than we give them credit for. They have their own air conditioning systems. Like I said, they like it at 95 degrees. In winter, they huddle together to make heat. In summer, they do the opposite. To avoid cooking alive, worker bees fly back and forth to create airflow. When it gets really hot, the foragers bring back water instead of nectar. They spread the water around, and as it evaporates, it cools the hive down. Some bees even stand at the entrance and fan their wings like tiny electric fans. This works for a while, but in the Sahara, the heat never stops. The fans are not enough. The water evaporates too fast. That is why you cannot just release a regular honeybee from Europe or America into the desert. They would last a day, maybe two. But there is a secret weapon. You have to use local soldiers. There are bees that already know how to live in the fire. Take the East African lowland honeybee. It looks like a regular bee, just a little smaller. It has fuzzy hair on its upper body and black stripes. This bee lives in the southern and eastern parts of Africa. These are hot regions where other species would give up. Over thousands of years, these bees have adapted to drought. They have also become more spirited. In Africa, natural selection is brutal. Only the colonies that defend their lives survive. They chase away predators and fight for every drop of water. The calm, nice bees vanished a long time ago. But there is an even better option, the Nubian honeybee. This bee lives just south of the Sahara in Sudan and the Arabian Peninsula. This is basically the front line of the desert war. These bees can handle summer heat above 104 degrees without breaking a sweat. In the same weather, other bees lose entire colonies. But the Nubian bees keep working. Scientists call their heat resistance one of a kind. And get this, their secret is their size. They are smaller than regular bees. It sounds like a disadvantage, but in the heat, small is good. A smaller body gets rid of heat faster. They do not hold on to the warmth. Also, because they are small, there is more empty space inside the hive between the bees. Air flows better. The hive does not turn into an oven. Also, they are lighter in color. Their yellowish body reflects the sunlight instead of absorbing it like a black shirt would. It is a built-in sun protection system. If it gets too crowded and hot, the colony instinctively reduces its numbers. They stop laying eggs so there are fewer bodies making heat. It is a brilliant survival strategy. But the biggest shock came just 15 years ago. Scientists were exploring the Kufra oasis. This is a spot deep in the northern part of the Sahara, completely surrounded by endless sand, and they found bees. Real, alive, working honeybees. These bees had been living there, totally cut off from the world for about 10,000 years. Imagine that. Generation after generation living on an island of green in a sea of sand. They are technically the same species that pollinates our almonds, but genetic tests showed they are different. They have evolved on their own. Researchers think these bees got stuck there when the climate changed. 11,000 years ago, the Sahara was green. It had lakes, rivers, and forests. When it dried up, these bees got trapped in the oasis. They proved that life can hold on in the heart of the desert. If you release these specific bees into areas with just a little bit of vegetation, they do not just survive, they thrive. And if they thrive, they bring benefits that go way beyond just making honey. We are talking about money, serious money. Pollination is a business. In the United States, wild bees add over $3 billion to agriculture every year. If you count the domestic ones, it is 15 billion. Without insects, we would be in trouble. In southwest China, bees disappeared because of pollution and chemicals. Farmers there have to climb trees with little paintbrushes and pollinate apple flowers by hand. It takes forever and costs a fortune. If Africa can bring bees back to the edge of the desert, it could save their farmers. And we know it works because one country is already doing it. Israel has turned the Arava Desert into a garden. This place looks like the surface of the moon. It is scorched earth. Yet local farmers place hives right on the sand. The air there is clean with no pollution. The bees get sick less often. The colonies are healthy. Farms in this desert now produce huge amounts of vegetables. It proves that if you have the right bee and the right strategy, the sand is not a barrier. But the African bees have one more superpower that the rest of the world is desperate for. Immunity zero. There is a reason scientists are so obsessed with these tough African bees. It is not just about greening the desert, it is about saving the world's food supply. Right now, bees across the planet are facing a horror movie scenario. There is a parasite that destroys hives from the inside out. It is called the Varroa mite. In Latin, its name is Varroa destructor, and it lives up to that name. It is a tiny external parasite like a tick that latches onto a bee and drains its fluids. Well, technically it feeds on the fat body tissue, but the result is the same. This mite is a nightmare for beekeepers. It causes more damage than all other diseases combined. It originally came from Asia, where it lived on a different type of bee. Those Asian bees had millions of years to adapt. They learned how to groom each other and remove the mites. They reached a balance. But in the 1950s, the mite jumped species. It found the European honeybee. The European bee had no defenses. It was a collapse. The mites crawl into the cells where the baby bees are growing. They reproduce right there, feeding on the defenseless larvae. When the baby bee is born, it is weak and deformed. The mites also carry viruses. One of the worst is the deformed wing virus. Bees are born with twisted, useless wings. They cannot fly, they cannot work. They are just mouths to feed. The colony falls apart. This combination of vampire mites and viruses has erased millions of hives. It started in the 90s. Beekeepers would go out to their hives and find them empty. Every year, a third of all hives just vanished. The biggest issue is that we cannot stop it. Once the mite gets into a country, it never leaves. For a long time, Australia was the only safe place left. But a few years ago, the mite arrived there too. To stop the spread, they had to burn 28,000 hives. They eliminated 40 million bees to try and save the rest. It cost them over $130 million. And even then, the mite keeps coming back. So what does this have to do with the Sahara? Everything. The African bees we talked about, the ones that survive the heat, they are not afraid of the mite. European bees have been bred by humans for centuries to be gentle. We wanted bees that do not sting. We made them calm and convenient. But in doing so, we accidentally made them weak. We bred the fight out of them. The African bees living on the edge of the desert never had that luxury. They live by the rules of the wild. They are aggressive groomers. If a mite gets on them, they rip it off. If a cell is infected, they sense it and remove it. They have a natural immunity that our bees lost long ago. This makes the Sahara experiment incredibly important. If these bees can conquer the desert, their population will grow. They will become a massive genetic bank. We could use them to breed a hybrid bee. Imagine a bee that makes honey like a European one but battles mites like an African one. It could save billions of dollars and secure our food future. If bees vanish in the north because of mites and chemicals, Africa could be the backup drive for the entire species. It is a plan B for the planet. But bringing life back to the desert has a domino effect. When you bring back the plants and the bees, you invite other guests to the party. Some of them are not friendly, and one of them is the toughest animal on Earth. A new predator arrives. If the bees succeed, the landscape changes. Grass grows, bushes appear, small animals move in to eat the seeds. And then come the snakes. The Sahara is already full of them. You have got horned vipers and cobras that can hide in the sand for days. They get their moisture from the fluids of their prey. Right now, they are spread out because there isn't much food. But if the desert turns green, the snake population will explode. Farmers who dream of green fields will suddenly find themselves surrounded by toxic reptiles. It sounds like a horror movie, but nature has a solution for that too. Enter the honey badger. This animal is legendary for a reason. It eats cobras for breakfast, literally. Its diet includes insects, frogs, turtles, and the most dangerous snakes in Africa. But its name gives away its true love. It loves honey. More specifically, it loves bee larvae. A honey badger will tear a hive apart to get to the brood comb. It does not care about the stings. Its skin is so thick and loose that a bee stinger can barely penetrate it. And even if it does, the badger just shakes it off. Right now, honey badgers live all over Africa, but they stop at the edge of the Sahara. It is too dry and there is no food. But if we fill the desert with bees, we are basically laying out a buffet for the honey badger. They would follow the bees north, and as they move in, they would act as the police force for the snake problem. Honey badgers have built up a resistance to snake venom over thousands of years. A bite that would end a lion just makes a honey badger take a nap. They would keep the snake population in check, making the new green zone safer for humans. It is a perfect circle. Bees bring plants. Plants bring mice. Mice bring snakes. Snakes bring badgers. So should we do it? Should we release millions of bees and turn the Sahara green? It sounds amazing. But here is the twist that nobody talks about. We might not want to fix the Sahara. In fact, the Earth might need the Sahara exactly the way it is. The desert is not useless waste. It is a giant dust factory. Every year, the wind picks up hundreds of millions of tons of dust from the Sahara. This dust is rich in iron and phosphorus. It gets carried high into the atmosphere and travels thousands of miles across the Atlantic Ocean. It looks like a dirty cloud, but it is actually a delivery service. Some of it falls into the ocean, feeding the plankton. Plankton is the bottom of the food chain. Without it, the oceans fall silent. But the craziest part is where the rest of the dust goes. It lands in the Amazon rainforest. You see, the soil in the Amazon is actually terrible. The heavy rains wash away all the nutrients, especially phosphorus. Without new phosphorus, the rainforest would stop growing. It would slowly fade away. The Saharan dust provides that missing nutrient. It brings about 22,000 tons of phosphorus every year. That is almost exactly the amount that gets washed away by the rain. The empty sands of Africa keep the lungs of the planet alive in South America. It is a bizarre connection. The driest place on Earth feeds the wettest place on Earth. If we succeeded in turning the Sahara green with our super bees, the dust would stop. The fertilizer shipment to the Amazon would be canceled. The rainforest could begin to perish. So the panic wasn't just about the heat harming the bees. It is about realizing that if the bees actually survived and did their job too well, we might break something much bigger. The Earth is a complex machine. We tried to fix one part and we almost broke the engine. The unanswered question. We started this journey standing over crates of frozen bees in the middle of a boiling desert. The plan sounded perfect on paper. It seemed like a simple equation. Bees equal pollination. Pollination equals life. Sand equals emptiness. We wanted to be the heroes who finally terraformed the wasteland. And looking at the raw data, the science shows we could actually pull it off. We found the super bees in the Kufra oasis, survivors that have adapted to the harshest conditions on Earth. We mapped out the mite-resistant genetics of the African colonies. We looked at the agricultural miracles in Israel, where they have already made the desert bloom. The pieces of the puzzle are all there, waiting for us to put them together. But when you step back and look at the picture those pieces make, it is genuinely terrifying. It goes way beyond just planting some flowers. What we discovered is that the Sahara isn't just an empty lot waiting for renovation. It is a vital engine for the entire planet. And there are theories suggesting that by greening the Sahara, we might accidentally unleash a global weather apocalypse. You see, what many overlooked is the relationship between the sand and the rainforest. It starts with the dust, specifically the dust from the Baudelaire Depression in Chad. This isn't just dirt, it is dead microorganisms rich in phosphorus. Every year, massive winds pick up tons of this nutrient-rich dust and carry it across the Atlantic Ocean. It falls on the Amazon rainforest like a steady rain of fertilizer. Without this dust, the Amazon soil is actually quite poor. It relies on the Sahara to feed it. If we green the Sahara, the roots of the new trees will lock that dust into the ground. The winds will blow clear, and across the ocean, the Amazon rainforest, the lungs of the earth, will begin to starve. We would be trading a new forest in Africa for the death of the old forest in South America. But the nightmare doesn't stop there. The Sahara isn't just a dust factory, it is a massive heat shield and a hurricane suppressor. The dry, dusty air that blows off the African coast creates a phenomenon called the Saharan air layer. This layer acts like a giant atmospheric lid on the Atlantic Ocean. It suppresses the formation of tropical storms. It keeps the ocean in check. If you turn the Sahara green, the dust stops. The air becomes moist. That lid disappears completely. Without the Saharan dust to choke them out, hurricanes coming off the Atlantic could become supercharged. We aren't talking about the storms we are used to. We are talking about storms larger and more powerful than anything in recorded history. Imagine Category 6 or 7 hurricanes fueled by moist African air slamming into the Caribbean and the United States year after year. We might save the African bees, and that is noble, but the price could be washing Florida or New York off the map. It is a chaotic butterfly effect. A flower blooms in Algeria and a city drowns in America. The devastation would be biblical. We would be engineering a weather system that destroys our own coastal cities, all because we wanted to see grass grow on a dune. And it gets stranger. Some climatologists are now sounding the alarm about the albedo effect. This is basic physics, but the implications are terrifying. Right now, the Sahara is light-colored sand. It acts like a giant mirror, reflecting a massive amount of the sun's radiation back into space. This reflection helps keep the global temperature down. It cools the planet. Forests and vegetation, on the other hand, are dark. Dark colors absorb heat. If we successfully turn the largest mirror on Earth into a dark green sponge, the Sahara will stop reflecting the sun and start absorbing it. This could trigger a runaway heating loop. Instead of fighting climate change, we might accidentally hit the gas pedal. We could cook the planet even faster than we are now. We could be engineering our own planetary fever, turning Earth into a greenhouse not by pollution, but by planting trees in the wrong place. We assume that green is good, but in this case, green might be the color of our demise. But perhaps the wildest theory isn't about the future, it's about the past. We have to look at the Eye of the Sahara, that massive, mysterious circular structure in Mauritania. It looks like a bullseye from space. Some geologists and fringe theorists believe the Sahara wasn't always a natural desert, but the result of a previous civilization's failure. We know for a fact that the Sahara was green 11,000 years ago. It was a lush paradise with rivers, lakes, and hippos. And then, very suddenly, it wasn't. It died. Why? Did the Earth just decide to shut it down? Or did an ancient culture try to geoengineer their world, just like we are trying to do with these bees? There is a haunting possibility that the Sahara is a graveyard. It might be the blast zone of an ancient technology gone wrong. If the Rasha structure, the Eye, is actually the remains of the lost city of Atlantis, as some claim, then the desert around it might be the consequence of their hubris. By releasing these bees and trying to force the desert to bloom again, we aren't just playing with nature, we might be rebooting a machine that was turned off for a reason. We are walking into the same trap that might have wiped out a civilization before us. And then there is the biological threat. This is the one that keeps biologists up at night. The sands of the Sahara have been dry and hot for thousands of years. But underneath that sand, deep in the dormant layers of the earth, there could be ancient bacteria or biological agents lying in suspended animation. They are trapped there, asleep. If we bring back the water and we bring back the plants and we change the soil chemistry, we might wake up things that have no business existing in the modern world. We could be unlocking a biological Pandora's box. Imagine a pathogen that has been dormant for 6,000 years. Our immune systems have no memory of it. Modern science has no defense against it. We see this happening in the melting permafrost of Siberia, where zombie viruses are waking up. The exact same thing could happen in the heated, wet soil of a terraformed Sahara. We could save the bees, only to unleash a plague that wipes out everything else. So where does that leave us? We are standing on a precipice. On one side, we have the potential for a miracle. If we release the bees, we could save local farmers from starvation. We could create a backup population of honeybees that are immune to the varroa mite that is erasing hives worldwide. We could turn a wasteland into a garden. That is a huge win. It is the dream of humanity to fix the broken parts of the world. But on the other side of the precipice is the cost, and the cost is unknown. It might be the death of the Amazon rainforest. It might be the destruction of the global weather system. It might be the awakening of something ancient and unseen. It is the ultimate trade-off. Do we save the bees, or do we keep the monsters, climatic and biological, asleep in the sand? This isn't just about biology anymore, it is about philosophy. It is about the arrogance of man thinking he can steer the planet like a car. Every time we try to fix a complex system, we break something else. We introduced cane toads to Australia to eat beetles, and they destroyed the ecosystem. We introduced kudzu to America to stop erosion, and it swallowed the South. So here is the real question. If you had the button to turn the Sahara green tomorrow, but it meant risking the Amazon rainforest or unleashing mega hurricanes, would you push it? Or is the desert too important to lose? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you learned something new today, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about how weird our planet really is.